The Nexus Station marketplace buzzed with the usual chaos of interspecies commerce. Sarah Martinez navigated through the crowd, her worn maintenance unit's uniform marking her as one of the countless human workers who kept the massive space station running. The acrid smell of Zephyrian spices mixed with the metallic tang of recycled air, while translators crackled with a dozen different languages. She was heading toward the hydroponic supply vendor when a sound cut through the noise of piercing, otherworldly wail that made her blood run cold. The crowd around her seemed to recoil, forming a wide circle around something near the fountain at the marketplace's center. Sarah pushed through the ring of onlookers, her maternal instincts overriding common sense. In the middle of the circle, a small figure writhed on the ground, its crystalline scales shifting through violent shades of red and orange. The creature was no larger than a human toddler, but its alien features were unmistakable. The elongated limbs, the delicate fin-like protrusions along its spine, and most notably, the elaborate golden circlet that had fallen beside it during its distress. The child was Catherian, Sarah realized. She'd only seen their species in holovids. They were reclusive, powerful, and notoriously difficult to deal with. The adult Catherians in the crowd stood frozen, their own scales flickering with what Sarah had learned was intense anxiety. Their translator implants buzzed with confused chatter. "Why won't someone help?" Sarah muttered, stepping forward. A Catherian adult moved to intercept her. "Human, no. The youngling is in Kefma the Burning Fear. To touch during Kefmer is ... The translator struggled with the concept. ... Forbidden, dangerous. The mind bond could... Sarah wasn't listening. The child's wails had become desperate, gasping sobs. Its small body convulsed as waves of bioluminescent distress pulsed beneath its scales. She'd seen this before, not in Aliens, but in the traumatized children she'd volunteered with back on Earth. The cause didn't matter. The need was universal. She dropped to her knees beside the child, ignoring the sharp intake of breath from the crowd. The youngling's large, multifaceted eyes rolled toward her, pupils dilated with terror. Sarah could feel the psychic emanations, rolling off the small being waves of primal fear that made her temples throb. "Hey there, little one," she whispered, her voice gentle despite the alien's inability to understand English. "You're okay. You're safe." The crowd erupted in warnings and protests as Sarah slowly extended her hands. The moment her palms made contact with the child's trembling shoulders, she felt it a sudden, overwhelming rush of emotion and memory that wasn't her own. Terror of being lost, confusion at the strange smells and sounds, desperate longing for someone familiar. But underneath it all, Sarah sensed something else. Power, vast, ancient, and barely contained within this small form. She pushed the sensation aside and focused on what mattered. Drawing on every technique she'd learned in crisis counseling, Sarah began to hum a simple, wordless melody that had calmed countless frightened children. Her hands moved with practiced gentleness, not restraining but anchoring, giving the youngling something solid to focus on. The effect was immediate. The violent colors rippling across the child's scales began to slow, shifting from angry reds and oranges to deeper purples and blues. The psychic emanations softened, and Sarah felt her own heartbeat begin to steady. "That's it," she murmured. "Just breathe. Whatever scared you, it's over now." The youngling's eyes fixed on hers, and Sarah saw intelligence there ancient and profound, despite the creature's apparent youth. The child's small hand reached up to touch Sarah's face, and she felt a gentle pulse of gratitude through their strange connection. Around them, the crowd had fallen completely silent. The Catherian adults stared in what Sarah could only interpret as shock. Their scales had shifted to patterns she'd never seen before, complex spirals of gold and silver that seemed to indicate something beyond simple surprise. A new voice cut through the silence, speaking in perfectly modulated English. In 300 years of Catherian history, no outsider has ever successfully calmed the youngling in Kefmar. Sarah looked up to see a tall, imposing Catherian approaching. Unlike the others, this one's scales held steady patterns of deep blue, and silver, and the crystalline crown on their head was far more elaborate than the simple circlet the child wore. The bond you have formed, the figure continued, is unprecedented. This youngling is HFY Kithara heir to the Kitharian Empire. And you, human, have just done what our greatest psychic healers declared impossible. Sarah blinked, suddenly, aware that she was still holding what amounted to alien royalty. The child's HFY seemed reluctant to let go, their small fingers still wrapped around her hand. I didn't know, Sarah said simply. I just saw a scared kid. The adult Kitharians. Head tilted in what might have been amusement. Yes, that is precisely why it worked. They paused, scales shifting to incorporate threads of gold. I am Emperor Kithindar. You have just calmed my heir during their first Kefmer, their transition into true consciousness. According to our oldest laws, this makes you the Emperor. Seemed to struggle with the translation before settling on family. Sarah looked down at HFY, who had curled up against her like any exhausted toddler might. Despite the alien features, the gesture was unmistakably that of a child seeking comfort. Oh, she said quietly, well then, I guess I should introduce myself properly. I'm Sarah Martinez, and apparently I'm very pleased to meet you. The Emperor's scales rippled with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as Kitharian laughter. Around them, the crowd began to disperse, but not before she caught fragments of excited conversation in a dozen languages. Word of this encounter would spread quickly through the station, and then beyond. But for now, Sarah was content to sit on the marketplace floor, holding a sleeping alien child and marveling at how the universe had a way of turning ordinary moments into something extraordinary. After all, she'd only been trying to buy plant nutrients. Instead, she'd apparently just become part of the royal family of one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Just another day at Nexus Station.